this video, you'll be watching an excerpt from our Civil 3D intro class. The topic I'll be covering is profiles. So profile is covered on page 147. What is it? It's a side view of an alignment. It shows the changes in elevation along a surface. There's a screenshot down here, but it's difficult to tell. The blue line is the profile, and it basically shows vertical geometry along the center line of the road. Why do we need it? To show surface elevations along an alignment, to design a smoother finished profile. How do we do it? On the Home tab of the ribbon, Create Design panel, there is a Profile button. So this drawing is called Profiles. What we want to do is we want to see what the existing ground looks like along the center line of Main Street. And we want to see what the existing ground looks like along the center line of Court Street. Once we know what our existing conditions are, then we can design our new road for that, for that street. So let's go and start at the top here. Home tab, Profile. We're going to create surface profiles. So we'll have to do one at a time. We'll start with the alignment Main Street. And the surface that we have is our eTopo surface. On the right, you want to click Add. Once you click Add, you'll see the data shows up down at the bottom here. The style is set to existing ground. That's correct. If you click OK, nothing will happen. It will just store this information. So what we need to do is click Draw in Profile View. Once you click Draw, this window will pop up, and there's a lot of different parts of this window. So we'll just start here. Main Street alignment, that's correct. Profile View name, this will automatically generate a name that matches the alignment. That's fine. Profile View style, so everything has a style. Let's go with Major Grids. And then it has a layer. So all that's good. Click Next. The profile, which is going to look something like this, is going to start automatically from the beginning of the alignment and go to the end of the alignment. If you didn't want the full length of the alignment, you have user specified, and then you can pick your stations. I'm going to click Next. All right, the profile view height will automatically go from the minimum elevation of that surface to the maximum elevation on the surface. Again, if you need it to be a little bit taller, shorter, whatever, you can use user specified and put in your own elevations. Click Next. Okay, so here you get to just double check the eTopo surface will be drawn in that profile view. The style will be existing ground. That's good. Everything else is fine. Click Next. So there is something called a band. So if this is like your profile view, the band is extra information that can show up either at the top or at the bottom of the profile view. There are different styles for this class. We're going to be using EG, FG, elevations, and stations. So at every station, every 100 feet, it will show us the existing ground elevation and the finished ground elevation. And we'll place that at the bottom of our profile view. Okay. So right now, profile 1 is going to read the elevation off of eTopo surface. Profile 2 will also read off of eTopo surface because we have nothing else. We don't have another surface. We don't have another profile. So for now, the two numbers that will show up in the band will be the same. Once we create our design profile, profile number 2 will switch it out to be the design profile. Click Next. Okay, if we had two surfaces, we could tell it to hatch the cut fill areas. We only have one surface, so we'll have to skip that. Click Create Profile View. Somewhere in this empty space, click, and you should see a profile show up. CAD Masters offers online and classroom training for a variety of Autodesk software. For more information, go to www.cadmasters.com or give us a call at 925-939-1378. So that red line represents the existing ground surface along the center line of Main Street. And the rest, the grid, is what we call the profile view. So let me give you some vocabulary in the chat. Profile represents the surface profile. And then profile view is the graph. So each of those items has properties, and each of those items has style, right? So if I wanted to change the color of this line, that is a profile. The color would come from the style, right? Up in the ribbon, here's a button for profile properties and profile style. So you have to think, am I changing the definition of that object, or am I changing just the look of that object? If I wanted to change something about the graph or the grid, still back up in the ribbon, we have profile view properties and profile view style. Okay. If you're confused on the word profile versus profile view, if you select the object that you want to fix, the right click will narrow it down. This will only show you profile things. And when you select that, that will only show you profile view things. It's the ribbon that's confusing. The ribbon will show you both profile and profile view. So the right click is a little bit easier to navigate. So let's talk about changing a few style items. I want this red line to be a dashed red line. And right now, I am not sure if it's dashed. There are a couple of things I'll put in the chat. Line type scale in a template should typically be set to 1. That makes the dashes their original size. So if it's a 1-inch dash, half-inch space, it'll set it back to that size. Model space line type scale. So in the model tab, we typically want that set to equal to 1. What that does is 1 means annotative. And remember, annotative means the scale here affects the way that object looks. So if you have 70 scale, that 1-inch dash will be multiplied by 70, right? Okay. And then the last one is paper space line type scale. That should also equal 1, and 1 is annotative again. So that paper space line type scale only affects the layout tabs, and it can be set in each tab, or it must be set in each tab. So we're only going to deal with model space right now. So just type LT scale in the command line, make sure it's 1. Type MSLT scale, make sure that's 1. And if nothing changes on your screen, you can try regen all, REA, to regenerate and see what happens. Looks good. It is dashed. CAD Masters offers online and classroom training for a variety of Autodesk software. For more information, go to www.cadmasters.com or give us a call at 925-939-1378. Now that we have this looking the way we like, let's talk about this grid, this profile view. So again, I'm going to go over onto this right side, and I'm going to measure the distance between these grid lines. DI's distance. It's not grabbing perpendicular. Let me use endpoint. All right, so the distance that I measured is 100 feet, and between 50 and 60 is supposed to be 10 feet, right? So that is a 10 times vertical exaggeration. If I don't want this to be vertically exaggerated 10 times, maybe I want it to only be 5 times, I can change that through the style. So I'm going to select the grid, right click, and I'll just go to edit profile view style. In this window, there's a bunch of tabs. On the graph tab, in the upper right, it says the vertical exaggeration is 10. So that was correct. I'm going to switch it to 5 and I'll click OK. So that shrinks it down vertically. It's not changing any data. It's still the same data. It's just presenting it differently, right? Okay. Another thing I want to look at is the band. If we zoom in down here, this extra information shows up. So this 14 plus 00 is coming from the band. These two elevations are coming from the band. I want to do a few things. I want to remove the extra station value because we already have it up here. We don't need it twice. And then I want to label this EG and FG so I can tell the difference between the two elevations. And then in the end, I want to lower this whole band downwards so it's not overlapping the text. Okay, so there's a bunch of things that I need to do with this band. So to get to the band properties or style, I need to start from the profile view properties. So I will select the object and then I will do a right click, profile view properties. In profile view properties, there is a tab called bands. Once you see that bands tab, then we can look at what's in here. So I want to edit by getting rid of this number, adding a prefix here, adding a prefix here. All of that is not changing the data, just changing the way it looks. That's the style. So this column is style. This is the name of the style. And I click this button here, double click. There we go. Click on it to open the little style drop down. In this style drop down window, click the edit button. Okay. So now I'm inside of the profile data band style. There's some tabs at the top. On the band details tab, there's title text, compose label button on the left. And then on the right, we have major stations, compose label button. So I know Civil 3D can get very complicated and confusing, but the more you do it, the more you'll get familiar with where things are. So once you get in here, we're not trying to fix the title. We're trying to fix these numbers, which are at the major stations. So the major stations, we're going to click that compose label button. Okay, so now we're inside of a window that has a layout tab. And the layout tab is typically where we do all of our style changes. At the top of this tab, we have 3 components. We have a station value, an EG elevation, and an FG elevation. So first thing, I want the station value to disappear. We have a couple of choices. I can either use the X to completely delete it, or I can use this visibility option and just set the visibility to false. So the safer method is just setting the visibility to false. That way in the future, I can always bring it back if I wanted to. Okay. If I zoom into this preview, right, this is my band. When it was set to true, it looked like that. When it's set to false, it disappeared. Okay. Next, let's add the prefix. So switch it over to the EG elevation. And I need the prefix to be inside of that text. So it's text contents. Clicking on the code, clicking the button. So here's the code, but I don't actually need to change this number. This number looks fine to me. All I want to do is put text in front of it. So put my cursor in the front. I'll use EG space. So it's EG space and then the code. Click OK. You see that preview updates. Then we want to fix the FG. So I'll pick from the top the FG component. Go into the text contents And this time I have 3 decimal places, so I do want to fix that. I want 2 decimal places. I'll use my 3 steps, select the code, change the precision to 2 decimal places, and then use that arrow to update the code. Once the code is updated, put your cursor in front of the code, type FG space. Click OK. That should update. I'm going to apply the change so it's saving it. All right, any questions? That's a little bit advanced. All right, I'm going to click OK. OK. There's a lot of OKs here. And there it is. So far, we removed the station, we added the prefix, we changed the precision. The last thing I want to do is shift the entire band down so it's not overlapping text. So I'm going to select the band, right click, go back to Profile, View, Properties. On that Bands tab, in this bottom piece, there is a gap value. So there's currently no gap between the band and the profile view. So I want to add a gap. Let's try 0.5. So that's ½ an inch when we print it out. I'm going to click OK. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to save. CAD Masters offers online and classroom training for a variety of Autodesk software. For more information, go to www.cadmasters.com or give us a call at 925-939-1378. Zoom out. That one looks good. I want you guys to do the same thing for Court Street. And don't worry, it's going to be a lot less work. Once we fix the style will be used for both profiles. So it's not as bad as what we just did. You're going to go to Profile, create Surface Profile. So see if you can remember what to do for Court Street, and then chat done. We now have these 2 profiles that show the existing ground. We're going to use these profiles to create our design for these roads. So make sure you save. We're going to go up to Profile, and we're going to use Profile Creation Tools. These tools are really similar to the alignment creation tools, but instead of doing something horizontally, we're creating it vertically. So go ahead and click on that. It asks you to pick a profile view. Let's start with Main Street. So I'm going to click this Main Street grid. And then we get to give it a name. So the name, I'll call this Main Street Profile. It's a design profile, default layer, and we'll use a complete label set. So again, that toolbar looks really similar to the alignment toolbar. To get started, I want to match existing ground at the beginning, and then I'll do some up and down, high points, low points, and then I will match again at the end. So in a real project, definitely need to think about it. Think about the big scheme of things, like how am I going to drain this road? Where am I going to put my catch basins? How do I connect into my existing features, right? Get the overall idea in your head before you get started. Once you kind of know where things are going to go, then you can start putting things in with these tools. Once you get something on your screen, I'll show how you can go to this profile grid view to adjust things. Okay, so let's use draw tangents, just tangents like that. All right, so draw tangents is just lines. I will use an endpoint snap at the beginning. And I'm going to be going above ground, below ground, above ground, below ground. That way, when I have my cut and fill, it'll balance out, hopefully. And then at the end, another endpoint snap right there. Enter to finish. Okay, so once you have these lines in here, this is a road. I can't drive down a road like this. I need to add some curves. And this is very exaggerated. A real project, you would keep your lines closer to existing ground. I'm doing a very exaggerated version for class. I want to add curves at all of these corners, these PVIs. So from my curve menu, there are a bunch of options. I want the curve to be tangent on both ends. So that would be in this free section. We have parabolas, we have circular curves, we have more free vertical curves. So I'm going to show you this button because it's a quick one. After that, we'll delete one of our curves and I'll show you another method. Okay, so free vertical parabola PVI based is a quick method to put in a bunch of curves. It asks you to pick a PVI, so click next to one of these corners. And then it asks you, do you want to type a curve length or use pass through? So pass through will allow me to eyeball it. So I'm going to go with pass through. And then again, I get this X with a circle if I'm too far. So I want to get closer where I can actually see the blue curve. And then I'll click to place that curve. Okay. The command's still running, so I can continue on, click close to that PVI, place the curve, and go all the way down. Enter when you're done. So they come with automatic labels. These labels have grips. If you want to bring them closer, you can drag them down. So when you have placed your high points, low points, you've placed your curves, this is a good time to take a look at your profile grid view. Is going to show us a table of information coming from this blue profile. So I'm going to click on that button, profile grid view. And then you can see the PVIs have station values, elevations, grades between PVIs. And then if you have high points and low points, it says crest or sag. And then if you have curves, it tells you the radius values, right? So all the black text can be modified. So for example, this slope is pretty steep, 11%. I can click on that and maybe I want it to be 5%. So 5, enter. Oh, because of all my curves. So sometimes these tangent curves are restricting the movement because they're so big. I barely have any line to move. In that case, if you need to change the slope, I would say remove the curves, change your slopes, and then put the curves back. But typically, let's see if I can change this one, 2%. Yeah, I just have too many curves right now. Okay, let me back up a step. You don't have to. You guys can stay where you are, but just for demonstration purposes, let me back up. Maybe to here. There we go. Okay, so once you just have your PVIs, high points, low points, that's a good time to go in here. It doesn't have any curves yet. This is where I should be able to change these slope values. Yes, so now it's allowing me to do that. So maybe I'm just trying to make 5% my highest slope. Okay, so I've changed my slope values here. That automatically affects my profile. So you can see that the slopes have changed. elevations have changed. All right, I'm going to undo that. I do want it to look the way it looked before. Why is this not coming in? Okay, so then let's say this is good. Then I go and add my curves again. Let me do that real quick. Okay, so now I have curves. I go back into the grid view and I see my curve radius values. And so let's say I want to change a curve radius value. None of these are black, they're all grayed out. So in order to change a curve radius, you must actually start with a radius. We started by using the pass-through option because it was very fast, but starting with a radius allows you to then change that radius in the future. So we're only going to fix one of them. I want us to fix the very first one. So zoom into that first curve that you made. We're going to use this button with the red X to delete that curve. Then click this curve, enter. So now we're back to just the PVI. Okay. Instead of using the curve option that we used, which was this one, let's try free vertical curve circular. And then it'll ask you to pick the first entity, click the line on the left, next entity, line on the right. And then we want to put in a radius. If you don't know the radius, you can just pick something small like 100. But I think 1,000 would probably work. Let's try 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 worked. I'll hit enter to finish. Okay, so I placed just a curve with some random radius. But by doing it that way, by using that method, when I go back to grid view, see how the number is not grayed out? So I can actually change the curve length or change the curve radius. I can click on here. Let's say I want it to be 4,000. And then I can see how that looks. So 4,000 looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it there. Okay. So there's a quick method, but if you want to be able to modify those radius values, I guess the slower way would be better. Put in some kind of radius and then you can change it later. CAD Masters offers online and classroom training for a variety of Autodesk software. For more information, go to www.cadmasters.com or give us a call at 925-939-1378.